Week 4 of the NFL season finishes with two Monday night games. Tampa Tom is just shy of our top dog spot, and we have all the NFL news for you. That and more in 20 seconds. Hello, fellow fanatics. Welcome to the Average Bros Fantasy Show, sponsored by Football Darts and Fantasy Sports Alliance. First, we want to thank our broadcast sponsor, Football Darts. Football Darts is a dart game that combines the skill of traditional darts with the strategies of American football. This innovative dart game is played on a uniquely designed multiple target dartboard. Unlike traditional British darts, American football darts is a game that combines the skill of both darts and the strategy of football. It can be played in bars, at tailgate events, as league tournaments, or as a leisure activity in the comfort of your own home. If you'd like to check out their officially licensed collegiate dartboards, go to footballdarts.com.
All right, Kevin. You know what they say, right? They say an empty wagon makes a lot of noise. Listen to our partners Josh, Eric, and Brad talk fantasy football on their podcast, the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast. They're your one-stop shop for fantasy football information and news. The guys talk rankings and projections with a whole lot of comedy. Make sure you go over and give it a download and a listen. You can find the Empty Wagon Fantasy Football Podcast on Anchor at anchor.fm. Go there and subscribe to their show. Also follow them on all their social media. They can be found at Empty Wagon FF.
And if you like this show, please like, share, and subscribe to all of our social medias that are down here on the bottom. You can find us at Twitter at FSA-FR, YouTube, the Fantasy Sports Alliance, or right here on Facebook at FSA. Josh, how are you doing this week, bud?
I'm doing amazing. Got a lot of sleep this week. Nice little Saints win to start off my week. And fantasy-wise, can't really complain.
How'd you end up doing this week?
I went 1-2, but the one league that I did end up winning was the one that mattered the most for me. Yes, I thought I'd break out something different than the Breeze jersey this week. So it's a little change of scenery.
For myself, I went 3-0 on FSA, pulling off a big win by my week's biggest loser. Only down 25, or only up rather 25 points in our redraft league. And I had Calvin Ridley opposing me, who needed to fill the gap, which he has done in weeks past, but putting up a big old goose egg this week. Going up against a tough Green Bay defense. But it's astonishing that the guy that is the only receiver in the league to have 3 consecutive 100-yard games going into this week be held catchless this week against the Packers. So he is my big loser of this week. What about you?
All right. My big loser of this week is going to be Brandon Cooks. I actually did have him on one of my teams, and I mean, not really like he would have made a difference if he did do anything, but, still would have been nice for him to do something. He had 3 targets and caught nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough, especially when they've got so many other weapons with Kupp and Williams out there. So a guy that is very streaky within this league in Cooks, that is.
Who'd they go up against anyways?
That I'm not 100% sure. I will have to look.
It was Minnesota too.
Minnesota's got a good defense. They've got a sneaky good defense. So,
I mean,
who do you got on the opposite side of the ball? Who stood out for you this week?
All right, so kicking it off with who stood out compared to, unlike Brandon Cooks, it's going to be George Kittle. Actually, the one who, what did we say? He outscored quarterbacks as well.
Yep.
He had 45.6 points, 15 receptions. Actually, I might add that he went 15 for 15. So 100% there with 183 yards and one touchdown. And he actually rushed or had one run of 8 yards.
Yeah, I mean, way to go to him. Definitely, nice to see coming back from an injury on IR for the for the 3 weeks and out. Or did they designate him as IR, or was he just out?
I believe he was just out. I don't think they put him on the
Yeah.
IR. But what a
Regardless,
way to come back. What a way to
yeah,
come back.
yeah. Regardless, right out the gate, I believe there was only a few other yards outside of Kittle spread around on that offense. No.
Yeah, so Nicky Mullins only had 200 yards altogether, and 183 of those went to Kittle. So, I mean, it was pretty obvious of who his favorite target was this week.
Yeah, and speaking about Rocky Bird's question here, do you think Gronk will finally play catch up to Tampa Tom since the other tight ends are hurt? Uh, Brady is one of my winners this week. On the other side of the ball, 42 points. Just, I believe it was less than a half a point separating him from Dak, who was the league's highest scoring quarterback throughout MFL and FSA. I don't believe so, only because they have so many other weapons there. It's going to be hard to say that he's going to be ever a standout with all of the different weapons. Yes, a lot of them are hurt, in Fournette being questionable, um, McCoy now being hurt, Rojo questionable week in, week out. Both of the top receivers for them, Evans and Godwin, both questionable every week. So,
Actually,
uh,
I think it was like four of their receivers.
yeah. So,
Like, I
I
think it
mean,
said four of them didn't practice today.
it's tough to say that he's ever going to be a standout again. A big part, sure. He loves his underneath guys, especially the tight ends there. So, um, I think that he could play a bigger role this week. But as far as being a standout, I don't think so.
No. That's because when they were in New England, that was like, I mean, with the exception of maybe like Edelman, that was his only real target.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really have any other options, so it wasn't
Hmm.
like not like where he's at now, where there's options aplenty. So. On the opposite side of the ball for me, I have the quarterback that you just mentioned, Nick Mullins, two interceptions, a fumble against a lackluster Eagles defense, only mustering together 4 points. I mean, this was, if you think about it, 200 yards, you would think, oh, he had a pretty decent week. But if you pair that with giving up the ball 3 times, I mean, you can't do that and expect to win football games.
Hey, I mean, and like as far as fantasy owners, he had a bad day, but Kittle completely just blew up. So his
And
loss,
that,
Kittle's win.
who else did you have as a loser this week?
All right. So my second loser, I'm gonna go with. It's probably gonna hurt you, Patriots fan and all, but I had Brian Hoyer. Only had half a point, 130 yards total, and one interception
Yeah, I mean, you see, I'm obviously not wearing a Hoyer jersey
for a
this week.
reason. Yes.
I don't think he should have been in the game whatsoever. I think that Stidham should have started the game. Um, if you look at our title for this week's show, is Old Dog Same Tricks. I mean, it's been on 7 different teams. His third stint with the Patriots. I don't think he's will ever win a starting job. I don't think he should even be a backup within New England. I think he's just a good safety net for them to have because he knows the offense already. So it was an easy slide in spot versus being less comfortable with Stidham. But obviously that showed being pulled halfway through the game. Um, and it just goes to show the lack of football IQ he has at the end of the half, trying to call a timeout after taking a sack, and with time on the clock and netting no points because of it, having no clock awareness, no game awareness. So um, definitely hurts not only having a loss on the record, but a loss because of such an underperformance from Hoyer in the quarterback position, whereas our defense stood up pretty strong against Kansas City all night. So
Yeah, I think that just goes to show how big of a part that Cam plays in New England's offense. Not a lot of people thought that he was going to be too much of a standout, but he actually came to be a real good fit for them.
Yeah, I mean, just the dynamics that he brings to that offense, being able to extend plays with his legs, and on top of everything else he does with the ball is just phenomenal. And speaking of using your legs, this my second winner for the week, Kareem Hunt. I mean, not mustering up too much as far as overall points, coming away with 21.6 this week, but with Chubb going down, the obvious instant fill in. And not having to share those carries anymore, especially with what they've been able to do with Odell Beckham in the pass and run game. A lot of the jet sweep type stuff to implement the receivers into the backfield to kind of play you know the gadget guy type roles to allow Hunt to be hidden a little bit more back there. I think that not only benefit obviously this week, but it's going to benefit greatly next week being the sole back over there.
Um, yeah, going into my second winner, I picked Joe Mixon. Helped him get his rookie QB his first win. Had 44 points, 151 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. He also had 100% completion rating, catching 6 for 6 with 30 yards and 1 touchdown. Um, I'll be honest. At the beginning of the season, I wasn't like too keen on drafting him, but he's slowly starting to kind of pull his own weight on my team, at least.
Yeah, I mean, as far as Mixon goes, he's definitely a top five uh, running back in the league, I think anyway. And I think that it took a couple of weeks to get him there as far as, showing that value onto the field only because you got to remember he does have a rookie quarterback. He did, he is trying to get used to a new feel offense, and then he's not getting real, much help on the other side of the ball. My other loser for this week is AJ Green. I mean, only he has less than a full point, zero point 0.8 points within the MFL system, and one catch for 3 yards on 5 targets, I believe it was. So when all you can really do is run as an offense, it kind of hinders you a little bit, right? Because you can't set anything up play action. The other teams aren't fearing your deep ball much. So good job by both him and Burrow to get something going there. And Damien makes a good point here. He says George Kittle has the fourth most receiving yards at the tight end position, and he's missed 2 of 4 games. So yeah, he's an absolute monster. I believe that when he got his contract and was paid out, they gave him receiver money, and that's pretty much what he is for them. I believe Jimmy Graham was the first one to try to do it and get that type of pay as the receiver pay as a tight end. And I think with these types of guys, Kittle, Kelsey, Ertz should be doing it soon. I don't know if he's valued there personally, but all asking for that wide receiver one money, being that that's the role that they play within their teams.
What was that? Your third? Was that your third loser, Kevin?
No, that was my second on each side.
Okay, all right. So my last loser is going to be Kenyon Drake, only putting up 4 points even and only rushing the ball for 35 yards. Uh, Not really much I have to say about him. I mean, like last year, he completely stunned people after the trade from Miami to Arizona. And even still into this season, he's been a decent, maybe second back to a flex position, but just 35 yards isn't going to like keep your spot in the starting lineup on fantasy teams.
Well, the big issue with him right now is they've implemented Edmonds, the rookie, into the fold a lot more. So they're trying to get younger all the way around. They're trying to a lot of teams are running the either two running backs or running back by committee outside of your Zeke or sorry Saquon and yeah, Ezekiel Elliott. Outside of those two, there's not or Brandon or Dalvin Cook being a third, Derrick Henry. Outside of those four guys, there's no one that really stands out to me that's a sole back anymore. Everyone's trying to mix a couple of guys into the fold just because it brings another level that the defense has to cover there. And Damien says here, is Drake a buy low or is he just off the radar altogether for you?
Well, I mean, with the point that you brought up that, they're starting to bring in Edmonds more. I mean, I wouldn't completely say he's off my radar, but because you got to think with like Cleveland's play style, how they have Hunt and Chubb, they both were putting up still at least like 20 points each here and there, going like flip flopping back and forth. So he can still get you the points, like if possible. It all just depends on how much they try to keep him in their run game, or if they try to have Edmonds take over with the majority of the workload.
Yeah, for me, it's a type of situation where if I'm in a dynasty league, I would go after him only because I know how deep my bench is. With 28 roster spots, so I would fill a spot if I could get him low. If I'm in a redraft league where my bench is a little bit more limited, and to me, it's going to be week in, week out. I'm going to look at the matchups. It might be a guy where I pick up off of waivers if he's there. If not, I'm not really looking to trade for him, even if I'm a big winner in it. Um, Only because I don't. You never know when the value is going to be there week in, week out. Depending on your matchups. And then back to the Kittle thing real quick. He said, um, San Fran still lost this week. That's a big problem. And I put that all on the quarterback, right? Two
Mm-hmm.
interceptions and a fumble. I mean, that loses you. That's what loses you games right there. And as far as if you look on the opposite side of the ball, the Eagles' defense isn't that great to where you should be making that many mistakes. It's not like they're forcing you. That's more quarterback error stuff. And it could just be because obviously he is a backup in Nick Mullins, but he has been with the team. So you really got to take into consideration the chemistry there. Is it
He's
something they could work out, or does it not really matter?
he's been with the team for a decent amount of time, and I was it last season or the season before where Garoppolo went down early.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah. So he knows what it's like to be a starter. He's been in that atmosphere before. It's not like this is his first time being handed the ball and saying, "Hey, go take us to the playoffs." Like he's been
Right.
there before.
Yeah. And then, speaking of somebody that, hasn't been in this situation before yet this season anyway, is my final loser for the week, Calvin Ridley, putting up a giant goose egg. I know I mentioned him a little bit earlier. Just want to recap. 0 points. Thank you, Calvin. I appreciate it greatly, getting me the win in redraft. Um, but in the same sense, one guy going out and phasing himself out, another guy phasing himself in. My final winner for the week is Damian Harris. A late ad off the IR. The Patriots putting Sonny Michel on, activating him off of it, and activating him for the game. Only had 11 points against a tough um, Chiefs defense, but rushed for over 100 yards in his first week back. To me, he's going to be the running back one there. Although this week they did love Burkhead a little bit out of the fullback position, just that bruiser mentality of fighting for those extra yards. But I think once Damian Harris gets rolling with things, he's going to be the go-to guy there.
Yeah, I seem to notice that a lot. Is that like, they go through running backs like day in and day out, but it seems like they always evolve around Burkhead. He's like been seems to be like the one guy that's just been there for a decent amount of time. He hasn't really gotten injured as much from what I know. So
Well, I mean, he was hurt a little bit last year, but the thing is, they've got six running backs on the roster, so one's always a little bit banged up. Then you filter the other guys in. That way, nobody ever knows what you're going to do back there, which is really what the Patriots have been good at for the past 20 years under Belichick. but they've always had one more standout than the rest. Last year was Sony Michelle. This year, I think it becomes Damian Harris.
You want to know who his standout is to me, Kevin?
Who's that?
And being on a shaky team and everything, it's actually going to be my third winner of this week, and it's going to be Dak Prescott. I what is Dallas like 2-2 right now?
Um, I believe so. I know they beat Atlanta.
Oh no, I'm sorry, they're not 2-2. They're 1-3. They're a 1-3 team, but the numbers that like Prescott has been putting up is like mind-boggling for them to be 1-3 right now. He put up 40, almost 43 points. He is the top dog for this week, beating Brady by like less than a half a point. He had 502 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. So it's crazy to think that they're 1-3 with what he's been doing.
Well, most of it has been garbage time stuff. Everything comes from the back end. Everything is fourth quarter. You saw it this week against the Browns. Once they start to play, prevent defense, of course you're going to be in a position where you can, throw all over because all they're trying to do is stop you from getting in the end zone. They don't care how many, yards you put up. And, just like it says right there, another great fantasy quarterback, but, as far as the NFL goes, bad for wins. That's your typical for the, I would say since he's come into the league, it's been the stamp that Matt Stafford's had. He's on the upper echelon of yards in the league, always closer to in the upper end as far as touchdowns goes, but it's always garbage time stuff, garbage points that he's getting you. So, the wins never add up to mean anything. And Damien
And
says that the
yeah, that's
Cowboys are horrible. Their defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. I believe that. Yeah,
yeah,
I believe
I
that 100%. Outside of the miracle kick against Atlanta, I don't know how they win anything. And Damien goes on to say that the Eagles are number one in the division with a 1-2-1 record, which is beyond me how they let anyone in that division, even be called first place. They just have null for right now until somebody proves that they deserve to be a number one in that division.
I'm
And
sitting
Rocky
here.
says that he is a Cowboys fan and he's ready for Dak to go.
Really?
I don't know, maybe
Really?
Rocky explain that a little bit. Is it because of the money that he's going to cost you to stay? Is it because
Yeah,
of the
so
attitude and arrogance? I
so I'm
mean,
looking at the past 4 weeks for Dallas, and the lowest score that they held a team to was 20, and that was week 1 against the Rams. After that, um they couldn't keep a team under 30.
yeah, which is really the mark for an offense, right? When you go to, between good, not great, it's scoring 30 points. And you're talking about the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Seahawks. Those are 30 plus point teams in their
So,
primes, obviously. Anything under that, usually that 30-point margin guarantees you a win in most
yeah.
cases.
So the last 3 weeks, it was 39, 38, and then this past week was 49 points they allowed. And
Yeah.
but on the other side of the ball, like they're putting up points themselves. But yeah, pretty much what Damien said. It's just they just don't have a defense right now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with Rocky here. He says that Dak has no confidence at all. I don't really know if I believe that in a guy that's still putting up that many yards, still has the ability to run with the ball a bit, still finding his receivers. I put none of what Dallas is doing on that offense. Maybe working in the rookie a little bit more and CeeDee Lamb. You haven't really seen too much of him of any note, but outside of that, if they had a solid defense and could actually play, a full game of defense, I don't think you'd be saying the same thing.
I actually so Damien says Tunyon is the biggest winner who scored 3 times Monday night. He had his most complete game yet, hauling in 6 passes on as many targets for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, I noticed that. Like, never even heard of this guy, and just comes out and scores 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's almost a la Randy Moss, 3 touchdowns, 3 catches, 3 touchdowns for over 160 some yards back in the day. Crazy numbers to be putting up, especially for a lesser known player,
Yeah,
having to fill a larger role. Yeah, exactly. Who is that guy?
no
Nobody
one even
knows.
knows. And you know what? I'm just gonna go out on a limb and just say that you're probably not going to hear from him at all
I
the
mean,
rest of this
I'm
year.
not
Not as
sure.
big, with not as big as a game as that. I think
Right.
that game is just like once this season for him.
Speaking of guys that we might not hear of for a little while, who do you have, or what do you have for us in the NFL news?
All right. As far as NFL news, let me bring it on over here. So starting off with LaShawn McCoy, it says he has a grade 2 ankle sprain. He's week to week. Austin Eckler, 4 to 6 weeks with a hamstring and hyperextended knee, or I'm sorry, a hamstring injury and a hyperextended knee. Nick Chubb is going to be missing 6 weeks with a MCL sprain. Sony Michelle, I believe we were talking about this earlier, Kevin. He was placed on the IR, and we didn't really know what it was about.
Yeah, he's had a few injuries, both in his knee and ankle area that he's been battling pretty much since the last season. They didn't disclose which was what he put him on the IR, I believe. Not yet, anyway.
Okay. And just like we were talking about earlier with Gronk getting more implemented into the game because the other tight end is out, it is OJ Howard who has a torn Achilles, so he's going to be missing the rest of the season. And finishing it off with Dallas Goddard with a ankle injury, and he has been placed on the IR, so that is going to be a 3 week minimum.
Yeah, what is this?
I'm pretty happy that these lists are
Rocky
getting
says
a lot shorter.
Rodgers to the Cowboys next year. I think that's absolutely insane.
No.
I think you see the same thing with Rodgers and Love as you saw with Rodgers himself and Favre. I think that their that their front office is completely content on sitting on Love as long as they want or need to, and ride out Rodgers longer than need be. I don't think that they move on from him, and quite frankly, I don't think that um, Jerry Jones is the type of guy to go after a Rodgers. He's all about the young pups. He's going to go get somebody young and
Hmm.
the next shiny thing. He doesn't want they had the option to go out and get Brady and they didn't want him. So and to me, Brady's a better fit within that team and that offensive line than Rodgers would be. So you know, food for thought there. Um,
Well,
like you were just saying though, back to your point, this week a lot less injuries than last week and the previous, week with week one into the season, which is great to see. And a lot of those guys starting to come back off of IR. Um, Damian Harris being one of them.
Michael
Kittle
Thomas,
coming back.
not from
Uh,
IR, but just from injury in general. Hopefully, he comes
yeah,
back.
Thomas is practicing. I read that Um, Christian McCaffrey is ahead of schedule and could play week 7. He could come back sooner, but week 7 is most realistic. Um, that was a 4 to 6 week injury that they had him on.
And
Uh,
actually, week 7 is actually really important for them because they play New Orleans in the Superdome.
yeah, so to answer that question, it is aiming for that week 7 mark. Could be a week prior to knock any rust off because he is ahead of schedule and has been quote unquote attacking physical therapy every day. So just as one might assume with a beast like McCaffrey, uh, everything he does is pretty much 100%. So should be coming back sooner than later. We will keep you informed though.
Yes.
Uh,
Try to.
yeah. Let's see what this says here. Do you think Mike Davis has earned his role in that offense? Um, I think only if they use him as the gadget guy. I think that once McCaffrey comes back, I think it's going to be very limited. I haven't seen much of where he's lined up outside. Maybe when McCaffrey comes back, McCaffrey lines up outside, and they put Davis in the backfield. Um, but outside of that, I don't think it's going to be anything that he's going to, stick within the offense. Um, no way CMC continues to dominate the timeshares after his injury. I think he does. I think he comes back and is,
I mean,
it's not like this is his first injury. It's not like this is the first time he's had to come back from anything.
well, with how many injuries like have been going on in the league so far, I don't think it'll happen right away, but I do think maybe after like a week or two, he would be back into the swing of things.
Yeah. I don't think that CMC has much of a snap count limitation or loses any snaps to Mike Davis after, say, second week back.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, he might not get as much of the workload on him right in the beginning, but I still think as far as fantasy outlook, he's still going to be one of the top guys.
Yeah. Speaking of top guys, on to our next segment, odd man out. Who are you looking at this week to start or sit? And anyone out there watching with us, on Facebook and YouTube, we definitely want you to chime in. Give us guys that you would start or sit, potential guys to pick up off the waiver wire. Any guys you want us to give you our opinion on to pick up or go out and trade for. Drop them in the comments below, and we will pop them up on the screen and read them off. But who do you got for us, Josh?
All right. So again, to everybody watching, bear with me here because I'm coming from left field with some of these. And my first one I'm going to say is to sit Derek Carr and start Nick Mullins.
You think you think Nicky steps back in with a good game this week?
I think he does. I mean, yes, Philly has, not the best defense. And I agree with you. I put the blame on him for having the game that team overall had. But they're going up against Miami. Miami's coming off of a loss already as it is from Seattle. And on the other side, Derek Carr, they're going up against Kansas City. They have the number 3 ranked passing defense. And also, I mean, Nick Mullins, he has his favorite target in Kittle. And then also, I don't know if you saw the touchdown that the rookie had where he like hurdled over somebody. So I think he could start
Brandon
to gain a
Ayuk.
role. Yeah, I didn't even want to attempt to say his last name.
Yeah.
It's it's out there, but I think he could get more involved in the passing game as well.
And you're gonna sit Derek Carr this week?
I'm gonna sit Derek Carr. Like I said, going up against Kansas City. Kansas City is a good defense. I mean, they been showing it over the past couple weeks. Taking down New England, taking down Baltimore. So sticking to my guns here.
Yeah, and Damien, or sorry, Brian says to start all of Miami's receivers and tight ends. Um, that goes right into my point. I'm actually going to be sitting Gaskin this week because of that. I think that the front line for the Niners is like a brick wall, so everything behind that is going to open up. So you may be right, and in saying that it might be an air show, but I don't think Gaskin has a good game for them. Maybe a couple catches here and there, but I think a bigger role and the guy that I'm going to look to start over him this week is Josh Kelly from the Chargers. You have Eckler going down after already sharing targets and carries with Kelly for the latter part of the season, or for almost all of the season rather. Um, I think that I don't think Jackson takes anything away from him. I think Kelly's the standalone in that backfield.
Now going back to Gaskin, you're talking about San Fran's defense. You think that they're going to be a brick wall with all of the injuries that they've had?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they still pull it together. I mean, they're one of the better coached defenses in the league, and I think that they make enough adjustments to get to the, that's their big thing is getting to the quarterback and getting in the backfield early. I think that because they're not doing it as fast as they normally do with the injuries, which is letting up their pass game on the back end because it's not rushing them that much. Um, I think that's where they're lacking now, but I still think that's a scary front within the NFL. I believe they're ranked second right now as far as a rushing defense overall goes.
Yeah, I think number one is Pittsburgh.
I believe so, but they really haven't played anybody of note. This was going to be their biggest test, but obviously that game getting postponed. Um, Definitely something to keep an eye out on all week, as we do want to mention. Now, two games getting delayed. The Patriots and Chiefs obviously playing last night on Monday versus on Sunday, and then the Steelers Titans game being postponed to week 7, I believe, from being played this week and having the bye. Something definitely to keep an eye out on and watch as the season progresses of all the different COVID listings and making sure that more buys don't start to get moved around. And Brian says Kelly scares him with the fumbling issues and he owns him. I think that's just being young and aggressive. I think that that's something that they will get figured out as the season progresses, especially being a lead back now this week. So if I was a betting man, I would say that that is priority number one this week as far as the practice topics goes for him. Damien says Robbie Anderson or DJ Moore. DJ Moore has one more target to Robbie, has 10 more yards and
Um,
more touchdowns and one more
so
touchdown.
for me, I actually have Robbie Anderson on one of my fantasy teams, and I can't complain with him so far. He's been a solid number two for me. So I wouldn't say either of those are number one choices. But as far as a second receiver, I'm gonna go Robbie Anderson.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm going to take Robbie as well. I think that because he's the bigger deep threat for them and has the bigger big play ability, that I think that his ceiling's a little bit higher as far as fantasy is concerned. I think they're both number twos as far as not only on that team, neither one of them is a obvious standout to be a number one or a number one within the fantasy realm as taking over a role. But I think he's for me, it's definitely start Robbie Anderson over DJ Moore.
And Brian says, "How about Bridgewater with those two wide receivers at the moment?" I was actually talking with Kevin tonight that how Bridgewater actually did put up some decent numbers, being as what I'm used to seeing from him.
Yeah, for me, I'm sitting Teddy. He's not reliable enough. I think that although he's got a lot of targets there, can he get them the ball? He has the turnover issues as we've seen in weeks past. And making mistakes as a younger quarterback would as his first major starting role. Um, I would say in recent years, but for me, he's just not reliable enough to say to go out and start. Maybe as a super flex spot, maybe if you're light in the position, but I think that week to week there's better matchups than what he's got to look at this week or in general, just because of the type of player he is.
Yeah, I think he just had a lucky week. He had a good week and everything, but I don't see him repeating it on a consistent basis.
Yeah. How about for your second guy you're looking to sit this week, Josh?
Oh, okay. Yeah, this was the one that you were scratching your head at me for, Kevin. And I'm gonna say sit Odell, and I'm gonna say start Traquan Smith. I know. Yeah, look, you're shaking your head now. You're shaking your head now at that. But yes, he put up a great game. but they're going up against a number one pass defense. And look at the other weapon. Yeah, Nick Chubb's done. Nick Chubb's down for a little bit, but look at the other weapons that they have. They still have Kareem Hunt out of the backfield, even though I know you were saying that Odell was coming out of the backfield sometimes. And they have Jarvis Landry as well. So I easily see the tides switching as far as getting workload.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, I think you're crazy if you're sitting Odell, and I agree 100% with the fam out here. Damien saying that you are a homer. He is correct. We've got Brian
I
saying you're another homer pick. Still correct. I mean, to me, if I have either Landry or OBJ, it's definitely somebody I'm looking to start. You this is a situation just as our running backs goes. Is any week one of them could be the big number one. I think Odell has separated himself though, to have the edge as far as that deep ball, that the big play mentality, that we know that he can go out there and get. And like I said, he does run a lot of the jet sweep type stuff for them. So, I am definitely 100% starting Odell. I would say I would have agreed more with you if you would have said Landry as a sit, being the second guy there.
I'd
Um,
sit both of them. I'd sit both of them. I you guys can call it a homer pick, but I mean, over the past couple weeks, you can see who has stepped up in place of Michael Thomas being out to be the Saints' number one.
it's
From
Alvin Kamara.
out,
I don't,
out,
and
out
I'm not
wide,
starting.
out wide.
Alvin
He is
Kamara
the
plays
number
out
wide.
wide.
But is he a wide receiver? If you
He
look,
can
if
be.
you look
He
up
plays
Alvin,
football. That's his position.
no, that is Taysom Hill, and you know that. If you were to look up Alvin Kamara right now, what is it going to say?
It's going to say absolute beast, not Traquan Smith.
It's going to say running back for the New Orleans Saints.
Let's see what we got over here. Sit Landry and OBJ. Yep, he's crazy. I agree with you.
I
They
am
said
sticking to my guns. When you see Traquan Smith put up another 2 touchdown game, and when you see OBJ and Landry drop a goose egg because Baker Mayfield can't get him the ball, then I will be right here. Tuesday nights at 8. I will be right here. I'm sticking to my guns.
go ahead. I think you're nuts, but as far as the guy that I'm looking to sit this week is going to be Jerry Judy, the rookie out of Denver. I think that matchup wise, he just doesn't have it this week. I think as far as that offense goes, I mean they're on the their third quarterback. They're playing New England, who has been shutting down number one receivers for the most part. As you saw last night, Hill didn't have a fantastic game. It was more of a lot of short stuff, a lot of stuff out of the backfield. Um, for me, the guy that I'm going to start in place of him is T.Y. Hilton. I think that he's going to have a tremendous matchup. Um, as that team just gets better each week for me. Um, I think Ty is going to be a standout. Uh, being favored by Phil Rivers. Says you're nuts and average. I would
Yes,
agree.
I am.
I would
Yes,
say
I am.
slightly below average now after that comment.
Call it a homer pick all you want.
It is. I would have been more comfortable if you were going to say start like Taysom.
You know what? You know what? I'll wear this shirt proud. Start them all. I don't even care if it's a bye week.
How about
Breeze.
this? If you are in a league with Josh, please trade him all of your Saints. He will happily take them all. He doesn't want anybody else. He is the Golden Boys.
I will
So
have I will have you know though, my tradition is I will always have Taysom Hill. Actually, I don't think I have him anymore. So
you can't
never
even
mind.
say that. You don't even know.
I always draft him. I
This
always
guy doesn't
draft.
even know his own team.
I don't. I have people who set my lineups for me. I pay people for that because and
Hey,
how did And how did that work? Yes, I picked them against or I picked the Packers against them.
He took that as a win-win regardless.
It was a win-win, and that pie was very tasty. That pie was
Taysom
very
Hill, chief
tasty,
was.
and if you guys watched Wednesday, if you guys have watched Wednesday's night show a couple weeks ago, I did pick Green Bay over New Orleans and gladly took my win there.
Yeah. Who do you have for your ad of the week? Who are you looking to go out and pick up off the waivers?
And I'm continuing this homer trend, and I'm saying Traquan Smith. He had 2 touchdowns this past week, and when I was looking on redraft at Traquan Smith, getting all my stats together, I saw nobody owned him. No,
Did you put
and
your waiver claim in?
no. I was too busy doing stuff for all of this that I was not able to,
Shame
because
on you.
as of right now, Michael Thomas is still questionable. There is a chance that he could be held out from this week's game and be held off the field until after the bye week. And clearly, Traquan Smith has been, stepping up as the number one receiver on the outside.
Their tight end's still out hurt too, right?
Yep, Jared Cook is still out. I haven't heard any updates on him. Emmanuel Sanders is he's starting to get implemented more into it, being as you're missing your number one receiver and your number one tight end. But I will agree with you 100%. The lead guy out of everyone there is Kamara.
Yeah. And for me, my ad for this week is going to be Damian Harris. Obviously, under-owned in a lot of leagues because of his situation with the IR just coming back this week. And after having a 100-yard game first week back, I do believe he is going to be the lead back there. Maybe more of a flex spot look for him. But regardless, I think it is definitely a safety valve pickup, especially once we start to get into the bye weeks starting this week.
So I'm looking over at the comments here, and I'm getting very upset, Kevin. It's been a couple seconds since you said Damian Harris, and I have yet to see Homer being thrown around.
Because it's a good pick. The fam
And
knows that it's a good pick.
and as far as a pickup, take sit and start out of this. As far as a pickup, you're trying. Would you disagree with Traquan Smith?
I mean, it depends on how deep my team is. I mean, if you look at the league as a whole right now, the wide receivers are a whole lot deeper now than running backs are as far as decent playable players. So personally, I'm not looking at them to add. I think that I would rather add the depth at the running back position in this case. So I'm not personally looking at Traquan Smith.
I am personally looking at Traquan Smith.
Yeah, Brian says right there. No, I think he's a good pickup, but I also feel like he's a bye week fill-in. That's exactly what I said. I think that he's just a depth piece on the bench. I think it's very matchup driven. If you're the guy that has, if you've got any running back from the Browns who happens to get hurt, that I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now.
Chubb.
Chubb. If you have Chubb, he might be a guy that I'm looking at. If you're waiting for CMC to come back and you haven't really filled that role yet, just ad dropping guys each week, he might be somebody I look at. As the bye weeks come up, he's a guy that I look at.
Just like how when Michael Thomas goes down and you look at Traquan Smith.
I disagree because Alvin Kamara is number one wide receiver.
And here's my argument on that. I have Michael Thomas on my team. Michael Thomas goes out. Can I head to the waiver wire and pick up Alvin Kamara? No, I cannot.
That is true.
Boom. I'm just going to come over here and say score one for Josh.
I disagree, but
I'm telling you, he had 2 touchdowns. Yes, Kamara is putting up a season right now, an amazing season. But I'm telling you, Traquan Smith deserves more respect. And you said it yourself, Kevin.
Now, do you think if you're going this all in on Traquan Smith, is he your top dog this week?
No, he is not my top dog this week. He's not my top
Speak,
dog.
Speaking of which, just to remind everybody at home, each week we are going to do what we like to call a top dog. We're going to review one quarterback and one flex position. Anybody that is not a quarterback, um, and
That
see.
also that also means kicker. And I swear 1 week I am going to do it, Kevin.
I doubt that will ever happen. But regardless, we're going to review each one player at each of the two positions and see if we can try to project or guess who we feel week in week out is going to have the best week. Uh, that week, uh, and then we're going to keep score. If we guess if we guess a player and that my player outperforms Josh's, I get 1 point. If I if I can speak, if I predict the top dog for that week, and I do have the highest score, I get 2 points. So far, neither me or Josh have landed either one. Our total score so far is 2-2, nice and even. Last week's top dogs was Dak with 42.7 points and Kittle with 45.6.
Yeah, you almost had the
I
top dog spot.
Yeah,
Almost.
I almost had my picks for last week were Tom Brady with 42.4, and then unfortunately my flex position was Derrick Henry, which we all know that game did not play, so that was a big old goose egg for myself. Josh took Russell Wilson with 23.4 points, and his flex was Zeke, who had 20 points even. Who are we taking this week, Josh?
No one. I am taking the top dog for this week or this past week and hoping that he can continue it going up against the Giants, being as they're 0-4. I'm taking Dak Prescott as my quarterback and as my flex. He had a so week this week, but the week before put up 3 touchdowns. I'm taking Russell Wilson's right hand man, Tyler Lockett.
Yeah, um, I think it's a safe bet in Lockett. I think that it's going to be tough for him to be a top dog necessarily with DK there with him as well. They're pretty even, I would say, as far as targets goes, and then DK being the bigger target downfield. But as far as Dak goes, I disagree. I don't think he's going to be able to do it week in, week out. I think that it's just a pure fact that he keeps playing from behind, and defenses are playing that prevent on him and allowing him to go deep. And that obviously, if you look at what Amari Cooper has done, just the magic that he's made as far as his route running abilities and making defenders miss, I think it's less on Dak. Um, for me, my top dog at quarterback is going to be Josh Allen. I think playing Tennessee, I think he's going to rip that defense apart. Um, I think they are probably one of the top suspect undefeated teams so far. Their combined teams have only been 1-8, and then I know that they're coming off of a bye week and they've had an extra week to prepare for them. I just don't think that anyone stops Allen this season in general. And then as my flex position, I'm going to go with the rookie Justin Jefferson, who obviously made me a believer once I had him on my bench and he scored 30 points this week. I think playing Seattle, I think that they opened up the top, and he is the top dog for me.
Well, yeah, that's because
The Lockett hurt his feelings last week. Yeah, he probably hurt a lot of guys.
yes, he did. I was one of them as well.
In no
Josh
way the
Allen.
Giants are able to force Dak to put up a lot of numbers this week. Yeah, I think the same thing. I think that the only reason why Dak put up as big of a game as he did is because they just kept playing back so much on him. I think that if they have a lead, then they're going to be able to open that playbook up a little bit more and get Zeke involved more and the running game involved more to where that all goes against Dak. And your top dog. So I don't think he's going to be able to do it again.
You never know. Did anybody think that Brady was going to be the second highest quarterback?
I thought he was going to be the first highest quarterback. So yes.
Oh, that's a biased decision there.
How is that biased? He's got so many weapons there. How could you not think that he's going to do well?
Because it's Tom Brady. Because he's old.
Hey, old dogs, same tricks, 5 touchdowns. Same thing he's been doing for 20 years.
I mean, yeah, he's 20 years altogether, but I'm still I wouldn't consider last season being one of those seasons.
That's not even close to being Homer. He's not even home anymore. He left. He's left the nest.
The burn mark is still there. The wound is still fresh.
That can't be a Homer pick if I'm right. Or at least almost right by a half of a point.
Okay. So I got a question here. This can be a little bit of a decider if it's a homer pick. Do you think Brady is in contention for MVP?
Right now, I don't think so, and I believe somebody posed that question earlier in the show. Who we think that our MVP is at this point throughout the season? Trying to find it here.
Oh yeah, I
I don't.
saw it all the way
Yeah,
at the beginning.
yeah. I don't think it's him. What do you think?
I said it. I don't know if I said it on this show or Wednesday night's show, but I said it a couple weeks ago. I'm sticking with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, I you know, I would say that the top two right now is going to be down between him and Aaron Rodgers. I think that
Really?
if one of them, comes back down to earth a little bit, um, Josh Allen can step into contention, especially if he, steps up as far as the rush game and get that up to where we know it can be. But he's had a couple tougher matchups than what Rodgers and Wilson have had. Yeah, Rodgers, Wilson, Allen, and Mahomes. Yeah, so those top three guys, Rodgers, Wilson, and Allen, those are my three. I don't think Mahomes is going to be there.
So
Personally,
seeing Mahomes there brings up the next one is, do you think I know he definitely isn't in the talks now, but do you think Lamar could be in the talks later on this season?
I don't think so. I mean, it's usually not the case that a quarterback would come on late to win the MVP race, especially with how these quarterbacks are performing now. I don't see Rodgers, Wilson, or Allen, breaking down enough to where Lamar can make up the gap late in the season. I mean, it's not impossible, but I just don't think that it'll happen. Yeah, and he says Lamar's playing zero confidence. I think so too. I think that he's kind of let the hype build up behind him too much, and teams are starting to figure him out a little bit more. You know, blitz the outsides a little bit more to create a smaller pocket to where he can't really get out around him, and then that leads right into your next point as to where that makes it so he can't really throw the ball. He's got to get it off a lot faster, which he hasn't been doing. So there is no real confidence in there, especially as far as getting an accurate ball out. So I don't think he's in contention.
Yeah. So I know how you said, like, right now your top two picks would be Wilson or Rodgers, and you said that if they kind of come back down to earth, that Allen would be in the talks for it. So I'm actually picking, just from looking at like the stats so far, and if their team was in a better position, if Wilson and Rodgers come down a little bit, I could kind of see Dak getting in there, being hinted in there. It's just like I don't know who was saying it earlier. I think it was Damien, just saying that it's just because of their defense is why their team is in the position they're in right now.
Yeah, but the MVP's got to win games. So if you're an MVP, you put your team in a position to win games,
And that's
and
what I'm
you
saying.
and
Had
you never
had
let off the
they
throttle.
had they been 4-0 still, which I mean, with how close their games are, they very well could have been, with the exception of this past game with Cleveland running away a little bit. if had they been 4-0 right now with the numbers that Dak is putting up, I think he could have been in the talks for it.
Yeah, like you said, the Cowboys are too bad of a team overall, and I think that that's 100% correct. If if Dallas's defense was there and the numbers looked more drastic, and you were to see a true Dak and not just a press coverage playing against Dak, then maybe if he was still putting up these numbers. But I don't think that would be the case, as Damien says. I think that a lot of that has to do with teams letting him throw underneath and not running the ball with Zeke because of having those passing lanes open.
And
Um,
well,
it is my only thing there.
well, you said it earlier. It's not that. I mean, so do you think Dallas is overall offense and defense a bad team, or because I know you said earlier that it's not that the offense is bad, it's just the defense.
I mean, the defense is definitely lower in the lower portion of the NFL. Um, I think the offense, it's kind of unfair to judge only because of what they've had to play and put out as far as the come behind stuff. I think that they, on paper, should be a top offense in the league, and I think that could be putting up those numbers, regularly without having to give up so much on the defensive side of the ball. But it's really tough to say, how Mike McCarthy, goes out and structures that if he could actually have a run plan set up in place and not have to throw the 15 to 20-yard passes every time he comes out on the field.
Yeah, and kind of going off of what Damien said, if they're not playing from behind, then Dak doesn't put up those numbers. I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, Seattle's 4-0 right now, and Wilson is putting up, 4 or 5 touchdown games like it's like he is playing from behind.
Right. I would definitely agree. I think that Dallas is probably one of the better of the bad teams. And playing the Giants, they should come away with an easy win, just because I
Should.
don't think anything that the Giants or anyone in New York outside of the Bills is doing is decent. So, I mean,
Um,
it should be a cakewalk, but
So we're coming up to the end of everything that we're going through here. Real quick, we were talking about who you think would win MVP out of like Wilson, Rodgers, Allen, and Mahomes. Being that all four of them are on a undefeated team, which one do you think is going to take? Which one do you think is going to lose first, and which one do you think is going to go the longest?
well, let's see. Let's pull up who they play this week. So,
Which team?
Buff. So we've got Buffalo playing Tennessee. I think Buffalo wins there. Who else do we have? We've got. Um, I think
I'm on the
Seattle
wrong week.
could lose this week to Minnesota.
I think Seattle takes it.
When does that game play? Is that the night game Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday night.
Oh, so Seattle will win that game because Cousins can't play in prime time. So Seattle will win this week too.
Well, Green Bay can't lose because
They're
they're
on a
on
bye.
bye. And who else was it? So it was Buffalo. Kansas City is playing the Raiders.
I think Kansas City wins that game. And who do they have the following week?
We'll go up to week. We'll go. So I'm on week 6 now. Thursday, week 6, Kansas City at Buffalo.
So one of them's got to lose.
So one of them is
Uh,
gonna lose. Let's see what else.
I'll go out on I'll go out on a limb and say that Buffalo wins that game.
I'm I'm gonna say that Kansas City takes it. As much as I love Josh Allen,
Jonathan Broughton says Buffalo loses this week. I don't think so.
I
I don't
I
think
would
Tennessee's got anything for them. I think that they are one of the most suspect 3-0 teams. I think that having, quote unquote, a bye week this week helps them, but I don't think that they've got anything for Buffalo.
well, I would out of all the undefeated teams, I would say Pittsburgh is probably at the lowest. I think Tennessee is better than Pittsburgh.
Um, I would have to agree. I would have to see them play a good team first to be able to tell,
Exactly.
because they're playing all bad teams, so it makes their defense look, you know, like the best in the league. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. I think
Um,
they're on the lower end, but
so also on week 6, Green Bay takes a little trip down south to Tampa Bay.
that could be a tough game.
I
And,
I
and for me, it all depends on who's healthy.
That is true. Yeah, it all depends on if Godwin and Evans are there. It all depends on what situation Tampa Bay's running backs are in. Devontae Adams could probably still be out, but I know he'll most likely be back.
Right.
And then Seattle's on a bye that week.
Well, that finishes it up for the formal portion of the show. You got anything else you want to add there, Josh?
Uh, guys, go out and pick up Traquan Smith. Support my cause. Support my cause. It's sympathetic at this point.
No.
It is.
And before we return back here to your regularly scheduled Average Bros Fantasy Show on the 13th at 8 o'clock, make sure you check out the flagship program tomorrow, the Fanatically Real broadcast at 8:30. We will be live here on Facebook as well as on YouTube. And then after that, we will host our happy hour via Zoom on Sunday, the 11th at 8:15, just before kickoff at 8:20, where we will watch the Minnesota Vikings play the Seattle Seahawks. And then that's going to be a very, very interesting game. You get to watch Traquan Smith do nothing and Russell Wilson continue his banter for MVP of the season. Yeah, supporting and winning are two different things.
Well,
Yeah,
supporting me will grant you winning in your fantasy leagues.
yeah, but he's not owned, so
That's why I said support me in going out and picking up Traquan Smith, and in return, you will win. I mean, it might not be because of him, but you'll get a win
puke emoji.
on
I
that
think that's
note.
everybody. I think that's everybody right now.
You know what? Like I said, next Tuesday, 8 o'clock, we will talk then. We will talk then.
And I just want to thank everybody for watching the Average Pros Fantasy Show, sponsored by Football Darts and Fantasy Sports Alliance. If you like the show, please like, share, subscribe to the show, and follow us on all of our social media outlets. And before we head out, I want to thank all of our sponsors, QB54 for our Arm and Leg League sponsor. We want to make sure we thank Football Darts, our broadcast sponsor. Nature Coast Tailgating, our World Championship sponsor, Finger Lake Mercantile, Cranky Veteran Candle Company, Southern Sirens Sugar Scrub, Deep South Creations, and of course, the Recast, our official music of the FSA. Thank you again to all of our sponsors, and thank you for all of our viewers for checking in with us this week. And we hope to see you all next week. Have a great night.
Bye bye.